Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Mike, and welcome to some more Genshin Impact, but a different type of Genshin video today. Something that I wanted to do, just to kind of recap over the last pretty much 3 complete years of Genshin, and getting ready to start our 4th one with Fontaine coming up in about a week's time. I wanted to take a bit of time to go back and just reminisce on some of the updates that Genshin has seen over the past 3 years, from 1.1 all the way up until currently in 3.8. Now, you guys are going to definitely hear a little bit of a story from me in regards to Genshin, because I have not been playing since 1.0. I myself started, I think, if I had to say, here in 2.4, because this looks familiar to me, this does not, as far as like the version content panels look. So I don't have much to say on anything prior to this, but I will still be ranking it based on what I think the patch kind of brought to the entire player base as each patch rolled through. Obviously, those are not going to be like as authentic as they could be with all of the other patches that I have played since 2.4, but I figured I'd go ahead and take a little bit of time just to quickly overview that, and then just share a little bit about what I think Genshin has given us as a game, because as I've mentioned multiple times before, it's pretty much my favorite game of all time, and I think it's really something special. A lot of these updates for such a beautiful world, beautiful story, it's very insane to think about. So, with that out of the way, let's just start getting through some of these version patches. Really quick, obviously, we have 1.0 right here. The literal just 0 day 1 launch of Genshin, and I don't know what it was like at the time. I know Venti was on the banner, I think Cleve was on the banner, I don't know, but the game came out with all of Mondstadt and part of Liyue's Archon Quest. And as far as I can tell, I think 1.1 is actually the finale of the Liyue Archon Quest, which is the climax of the whole thing, and personally what I think is going to be in the S tier. So for a 1.0 patch of Genshin, in what it provided as a brand new game, in the midst of the whole situation that we all experienced throughout 2020 and 2021, I'm sure you all are aware, I'd say that it was a pretty A tier game. Definitely still some flaws, as it was, brand new, and definitely started improving quickly as things went on. So that leads me directly into 1.1, and definitely the home of an S tier patch with the end of the Liyue Archon Quest and the showcase of the Unreconciled Stars event. Now, I never played through Unreconciled Stars. I do know that there are a lot of huge lore implications, especially relevant to Sumeru when Scaramouche started coming in. And with 2 new additions to the game in terms of characters being both Child and Zhongli, our second Archon, I would say that, likely there was a pretty good amount of content going on here, not only for the limited time events, but also just the end of the Liyue Archon Quest. And I know that Zhongli himself was pretty underwhelming coming out of the banner like this early on. To my understanding, I believe he ended up getting buffed to where holding his skill also ended up putting out his Geo Pillar, which before his buff, it was either one or the other. And I don't have Zhongli on my account, so I can't necessarily say if I'm happy with him or not, or if I think he's cool or not. Same with Child, I don't have either of them. But overall, I think for definitely the first major update after Genshin's release, this definitely was a pretty big deal patch. Now, we move on to 1.2, which, as far as I'm aware, is probably the biggest stickler of being guilty of having an event with very crucial lore that was temporary. And not only that, but the event itself provided a weapon for players, but that weapon is impossible to get through any other means right now. The addition of Dragonspine itself was very interesting in theory, and I'm pretty sure that if I were a day 1 Genshin player back in this day, I would have been extremely excited for something like this, because this is a region that is completely different to anything that we have ever seen before. And barring the fact that, the freeze effect is there, I I still actually enjoyed going through and exploring the entire place. The entirety of my map in Genshin right now is 100%ed. Everything in the desert, everything in every nation, everything in Dragon Spine and Enkonomiya. And I can tell you right now that I did actually really enjoy this edition of Dragon Spine to the game, even if I did play it like over a year after it was released. As far as the new characters go, we have Albedo and Ganyu. Personally, one of my favorite bow characters in the game to use for actually like shooting bows and arrows, and not just having her as a passive damage dealer, looking at you, Yelan. But I don't know, man. Like, looking and hearing about what 1.2 has done and what it's brought, barring the fact that Dragon Spine did have a lot of interesting things going for it, I don't really think I would have genuinely like enjoyed 1.2 as a full-blown patch. It's hard to say, obviously, because I wasn't there to like actually play the patch for myself, nor the Albedo event. And you know, Albedo himself, I mean, I don't want to like be a negative Nancy really at all, but he's just not a character that I'm super interested in for neither his story nor his gameplay, especially his element being Geo. And I do know that he is like extremely crucial right now with his relation to Gold in the Hexen Circle, and therefore Alice. And I until we like actually start getting some hard answers for Albedo, I think I'm just gonna keep on leaving him like in the back burner, and I'm not sure what to think about 1.2 as a patch as a whole. Keep in mind, obviously, as I did mention earlier, everything before 2.4, I don't have a lot of grounds to speak on because I wasn't playing during those times. The only things that I have to go on are the different playthroughs and things that people have showcased of their playtime through these patches and through these events. So I can't say much, but I can probably tell you that at least me right now, I don't think I would have enjoyed probably 1.2 as much as I would other patches. But speaking of enjoyment though, definitely looking here at 1.3, I can already tell you with the fact that 1.3 was the first Lantern Rite, it definitely would have been a step up from the 1.2 Dragon Spine stuff. Again, obviously I wasn't there for the Lantern Rite thing at all, and I'm not sure exactly what sort of actual big overall story additions were added during this patch, but at least for the past 2 years that I have been playing the game, because I think 2.4, or maybe it was a later patch, that had my first Lantern Rite, and then my second one during the whole Sumeru thing going on, I'm pretty confident that I would have like actually enjoyed the first Lantern Rite year, especially considering that this first one was the only one in which you got access to the Xiao Lanterns. Speaking of Xiao, we obviously got his addition to the game, which I think is fitting, obviously, for the fact that the Xiao Lanterns were a whole thing. And I do hope that they do bring the concept of those back. I'm not sure if there's some sort of limitation with them, but I think Xiao as a character, obviously, he is incredibly fun. But I don't know, just as a character, I'm not really looking to have him in my account as of right now. But a lot of the other related events for Lantern Rite were pretty fun, like Theater Mechanicus and some of the other things as well. Definitely the fact that we got our, I think it was the first time that we were able to get just a free 4-star chosen for ourselves during Lantern Rite, and that has been consistent throughout every Lantern Rite every year. We're able to just pick a 4-star character from Liyue. That, I believe, started here. I hope it did. I hope I'm right, but that's just something that I can always look forward to every Lantern Rite. And funny thing, last year, I'll mention it a little bit more once we actually get there, but Yao Yao releasing in the 3.4 patch and, you know, getting her for free there, that was really nice for me as well. Moving on up to the first Windbloom. Now, in all honesty, I haven't heard much about the first Windbloom. I don't know exactly what sort of story was being told during the first Windbloom, if it was just something about like what is an actual Windbloom, because I know that was something that Kale and the others were talking about during the newest Windbloom, during the 3.0 patch cycle, of, well, what is a Windbloom? What is my Windbloom? Things like that. I do think that some of the minigames of this event were pretty unique, similar to how we got some pretty unique ones during the second run of the Windbloom event. And I think probably just the best part about the Windbloom patches in and of themselves is seeing the interactions between all of the different characters and being able to easily showcase a lot of the connections that they have with each other outside of what we see in some of just the simple dialogue sections of the overall story. If I'm not mistaken, this was also the patch that we got our first look and playtime with Dane, Dainsleif, one of the Knights of the Royal Guard from Conria, cursed with immortality as of right now, and being able to just honestly start getting a lot of the seeds of Conria and the Abyss and his relation to all of this. It was so interesting, and I remember because it was around this time that I wasn't actually like still fully invested in the story, but each like big major note that the story kept on playing and surpassing my expectations with, it was honestly just, you know, I would think that I could probably put the Windbloom patch in A tier as well, just because of the simple fact that like once I finished the Dane quest here, that's when I kind of like started kicking in my mind, like thinking, okay, this game is actually pretty intense, and I'm curious to see where the story goes from here. Because I remember watching the climax of the Liyue Archon Quest, which was released here in 1.1, and that was like my first kind of wake-up call, but I still kind of put it off a little bit. I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool, that's interesting. And then it happened again, I think, with when I got through the Dane quest here, and then I think it was one more time, I think it was sometime during the 2.0 cycle, when I got to some of the story, like in the early Archon Quest over here. Obviously, I wasn't caught up with people at this point, but when I got to the story at this point, because I was a dialogue skipper, unfortunately, but once I got like towards the end of the Archon Quest in here, that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn up and I'm gonna be interested in this story because it's so good. Speaking of good stories, though, Beneath the Light of Jadeite, this patch, another Zhongli rerun, I can only assume from the fact that he's there on the concept art of the patch. But I remember going through his Archon Quest, and not his Archon Quest, his story quest, the first one, and then coming into the second one, where we were able to unlock Ajdaha, and fighting Ajdaha for the first time in his story quest. That was honestly just such a surreal experience for me, because now the game was like knocking in my head, like, hey, this is something cool, this is something special. You should be like trying to pay attention to it. If I'm not mistaken, this was also the patch that we got the Serenity Pot, which I don't use the Serenity Pot for much more than really just kind of getting free resources out of it. I do think that in order to like more freely decorate it, we should have the ability to add more in certain areas, because the load limits, I think, being mostly strictly just for the mobile side of things, they should be at least somewhat increased, hopefully, like just for kind of console and PC versions specifically. I don't know if that's something that they can do on their end, but definitely, if the Serenity Pot was added in this version, definitely something pretty interesting that I am actually happy is in the game, and this is a huge addition that I'm sure a lot of people are happy with. As such, I think I'm going to put it in front of 1.2 in terms of this, and I am going to have to start moving things around to like order them correctly. I am thinking of probably saving a lot of like the S tier stuff for some of my just like actual top tier favorites, but we'll have to see how that goes. Because looking at some of these concept art banners here, and definitely for the ones that I was there for, I can already think of ones that I do want to put in the S tier, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Next one is 1.6, the first Golden Apple Archipelago. Now, I never understood like why the first Golden Apple was so special to so many people. Maybe it was just the fact that we had like a limited area kind of given to the players, or maybe it was the new costumes for both Barbara and Jean, or maybe it was just something Klee focused, or I don't know. The reason why I'm saying that is because when we got it back in 2.8, I wasn't really like the biggest fan of it. Like, yes, it was interesting and it was fun, but like it wasn't as like fulfilling as I was thinking it would be. And maybe there was definitely a lot of things in 1.6 that were better than the 2.8 Golden Apple, but I will give the patch props though for outside of the Golden Apple Archipelago, getting ready to bridge the gap between the Liyue quest and the Archon, the Liyue quest and the Inazuma Archon quest. With the whole thing about visions going, what is it? Is it dead? I don't know if that's what you considered masterless visions, but setting up for the Inazuma Archon quest with Kazuha having his first major appearance and different things like that. I think I'll probably put it in between these two right here in B. Yeah, because I think I would, like, I'll think about it more when we get there, but I think I'm also going to put, like, 2.8 maybe in the B tier as well. And now we have the big one here, 2.0. And I remember hearing and seeing so many things about Genshin during this time. Because obviously it was the first major update to the game where they're adding a full-blown region. Inazuma itself, I will admit, is pretty much my favorite nation in the game as of right now. I just love a lot of the Japanese aesthetic, artwork, and vibe that the place has. Obviously, that's its main inspiration in terms of country. But I don't know, I think it was probably just because during Inazuma, that's when things like started clicking with me. Like, I really like this game. I understand a lot of people weren't really necessarily happy with the Archon Quest as things were kind of wrapping up in, I believe, like 2.2 or something, because it was very badly paced or rushed through and things like that. But I think just because of the fact that I myself was somewhat trying to rush through things and catch up with everybody at this point, I didn't really notice any significant difference. Because once I did kind of catch up in terms of the main story quests for the Archon Quest and everything like that, that's when I started tackling a lot of the character story quests, world quests, and everything just on the side that wasn't the main Archon Quest. Of course, with the addition of Ayaka to the game as a new Cryo main DPS, I would say she's probably one of the most anticipated characters for the game at this time because she was very well known prior to the game's release. I think she was one of like the beta tested characters. I'm not sure how the whole beta thing for Genshin was going before its official release, but I do remember hearing about a supposed like some sort of weird thing with the fact that like if you just got to a certain AR level that you would be given Ayaka for free. And while I would have loved to have had that, I don't think that she would have been free in any regard. But I think I can easily say that 2.0, for such a big drop of content, was something extremely important to the game. And as I started playing through it, I genuinely loved it. It was really cool. The one thing that I can't fail to mention, though, is the fact that the single scene from the trailer where A started doing, well, not A, but, you know, the Shogun started pulling out when she pulled out the Musono Hitotachi, I saw Twitter blowing up, and I was nowhere near a Genshin Sphere at that point. That's how big it was. But, dude, that was just crazy. I loved it. That was so great. Oh my gosh. I love the 2.0 series of patches. Maybe it's a slight bias because that's when I like actually started playing the game more and more, but hey, we roll with it. Speaking of rolling, here we have 2.1. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I could not honestly tell you what happened in 2.1 just to like separate it from whatever was added in 2.0. If I had to like go off of memory, maybe it was the Signora boss fight, maybe. I don't know if that was actually in 2.0, but if it certainly was, and I hope it is, Signora as a boss fight herself and actually killing her off, that was something pretty huge for Genshin at the time. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm just looking it up right here. This was actually the patch that Coco and A were added? What? I thought it was 2.2. Okay, well, my memory served me incorrectly there. I could definitely tell you from having both of them just right now, A and Kokomi are some of the most busted characters in this game. And them being added in the same patch, have mercy on all of your primos for those of you who were starting to play during this time. Jesus. Unfortunately, beyond that, I don't know if I could tell you if this was anything like crazier than like maybe just the Signora stuff and then A and Coco's addition. So I think to balance things out, we're going to move the launch of the game like just straight up to mid-tier, which I think is fair. You know, it's the actual launch of the game. It's a basic middle ground that you can kind of think of. You know what? Now that I'm thinking, I do recognize this concept art for the 2.2 patch. This is 2.2, right? I think 2.2 was the patch that like I actually first installed the game because I recognized Child and Xinyan together, and I do remember that whole thing. I don't recall much of the actual event or what was going on during this time because obviously it was very early on in my overall Genshin experience. But I do think I was starting to play during this time, and I couldn't tell you much of what was actually going on in terms of the event or the story either. I have a feeling that maybe this was, if I remember correctly, the islands were getting added like pretty much one at a time at this point. So maybe 2.2 was when Tsurumi was added, I think. Because if I'm just going off of assumptions here, A was added in 2.2. And she needs the Amakumo fruits as well as the Thundering Manifestation drops, which was in Serai, which would have likely dropped in 2.1, I think. So, yeah, I couldn't honestly tell you what happened in 2.2. This could, like, very well be, like, just kind of out of pocket, and I apologize if the patch was better for some of you, but it was just honestly not that memorable for me. I literally couldn't tell you. This is probably the one that, like, I don't remember a lot. Matter of fact, I'll just stick it in C for now. But the next one, we have, this... Is this another Dragonspine patch? Like, another Dragonspine focused patch? I literally don't remember this patch, like, existing at all. I don't remember a second Dragonspine patch anywhere in between, like, 1.2 and now. I literally don't. Wow. Are 2.2 and 2.3, like, the most forgotten patches for me, personally? Maybe I should probably think about, like, maybe going back and watching people play through these, because I literally do not remember any of these at all. And it sucks because it's, like, around 2.4 here was when I, like, actually, like, started fully enjoying the game, like, being fully invested. I think 2.4 was actually the first special program that I watched. So, I mean, I'm really sorry, guys, but I don't remember what these two patches had at all, and I literally couldn't tell you what. It's literally up until, like, 2.1, where I've seen a good bit of everyone's, like, sort of replaythroughs on YouTube and things like that, but to my knowledge or my experience on YouTube and things like that, I've not seen anything on these two patches. But I guess we can just quickly roll over into, you know, 2.4 at that point. 2.4 being the next Lantern Rite for Liyue, about a year later after the first one. My actual first one, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really, really loved this. It was something so special, and I still remember my first reaction to the final cutscene after you finish the main quest. Oh my god, it was so pretty, and Keqing's costume as well. It was so pretty. I love her so freaking much. I'm not kidding when I tell you guys, in that past video a few days back, she is one of my favorite characters in this game. She is so cute, she's so gorgeous, and she's so much fun to play. This patch was... It came at a perfect time when I needed, like, a make or break kind of patch to, like, tell me, stick around or you can leave. Nothing really cool is going to be happening. Because with not only with the Keqing costume edition, but also with Shenhe and Yunjin. I've spoken a little bit about my Shenhe situation. But that was just something so special to me. I think I'm going to have to put this S tier. And I do apologize, like, if some of these later patches, like, the S tier kind of starts getting clumped together. Because a lot of the passion is going to start flowing for a lot of these later patches, I have a feeling. It's going to be so, so crazy. And, oh my god, I can't wait to, like, I wish I could have, like, recorded some of my reactions to these and have them uploaded for you guys, but that just wasn't on my mind at the time, and I didn't really have the means to do so easily anyway. But we move on to 2.5. This is 2.5. 2.5 made a big addition with Enkanomiya underneath Watatsumi Island. And although I was still fairly, like, unaware of a lot of the things in terms of the lore and how deep it actually went and how far back into history it went, I remember getting to Enkanomiya this patch, and the main event of it was just an Enkanomiya exploration event, which definitely helped me find, like, all of the treasures in the area and get used to the area as well, because it was so huge and there were a lot of things going on. This was also the addition of Yae as a character and her story quest as well. Unfortunately, I was still kind of iffy about, like, things that weren't, like, the main Archon Quest, because I don't really remember much about Miko's story quest in particular. I do remember watching the final cutscene of it, and I was thoroughly impressed and satisfied seeing her there. Yae herself was a funny story, because I think A was getting rerun just alongside her, like the same banner as her in the same phase of the patch, and I told myself that I wanted A, but I also wanted Miko, and I needed to figure out who I wanted to pull for. In the end, I kind of just ended up doing a cheesy thing where every 10 wishes I swapped banners and I got Miko first, and there was still a good bit of time left in the banner for me to try and get A, but that ended up failing, and I ended up filling out some money to get a through the guarantee since I failed the 50/50 on her. But it all worked out. I got both of them the same patch, and I would say 2.5 was a very solid patch for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And this is where we start getting into a lot of the things that I remember pretty vividly about Genshin. 2.6, a very long patch for all of us. Not only for the nearly, I want to say maybe it was like 150 days. No, it couldn't have been. That's like 6 months. Probably like at least double the length in terms of a banner for Ayaka, because 2.7 got pushed back. But, you know, just on its own merits, you know, barring that sort of, that extended period of time where nothing was going on because nothing was planned for an extended period of time, 2.6 was one of those patches that was really, in all honesty, just a lot of fun. Seeing the Iridori Festival with some of the Mondstadt and Liyue characters finally being able to make their way over to Inazuma and converse with all the people here in the nation. This is what I think a lot of us were hoping to see Inazuma become after some time. Because with the nation being locked off for so long due to the Sakoku Decree, it was just such a feel-good event, and I thoroughly loved it. Very interesting, very fun. The addition of Ayato was pretty interesting as well, and his sort of whole thing being the head of the Kamisato clan above Ayaka right now. And not to mention the addition of the Chasm. The Chasm itself, my first like actual big able to see sort of difference in terms of huge addition to the map. I remember the night before the patch went live, I stared out to where we thought the Chasm would be, and it was just very low poly mountains. And I woke up the next day, the patch was installed, and I just looked at the Chasm in awe. And who knew how deep things were going to go underground? I didn't even know it was going to go underground at all until I started doing the quest down there. Holy moly, this place was freaking huge. 2.6, banger patch. Definitely better than 2.5, but not S tier. Because I'm looking at this one right here, and 2.7 was, probably still is, we'll see once we get to some of the later ones down here, but 2.7 is my personal favorite patch in all of Genshin. As of right now. Maybe it could change in a couple minutes, but dude, the Chasm, its quest, the addition of Yelan. Oh my gosh, Yelan was the first character that I pre-farmed hard for. I wanted to make sure that I had her set up as best as possible as soon as I got her out of the gacha. I was sitting on a guarantee, and I had some excess wishes for her weapon as well. I was so ready. I got her level 90 day 1. I think she was like probably 8, maybe, somewhere around there at least, in terms of talents on day 1 as well. And the quest itself, I just remember watching the end of that quest, the final cutscene. I seriously thought they were going to kill off a character. I understand that that is something that is kind of common in the Honkai series for Hoyoverse, but that is something that we still have not seen in Genshin. And I think if there was any point for them to actually kill off a character here, this probably would have been the best time to do it. Because literally, the Perilous Journey title card for this thing, oh my gosh. I don't know what to tell you guys. This is literally peak, this was peak Genshin right here. I loved this patch. This was awesome. And then we had 2.8 right after. Okay, I'm not gonna be a stick in the mud here. I just don't really like Fischl all that much. And having an event that was mostly centered around her, I mean, it was okay. It was interesting, you know, getting to see and hear a lot more about Kazuha and Shinyan, and yes, a little bit of Fischl. Who else was there? Was it Mona? I think it was, yeah, Mona was definitely there. But, I don't know, man. I think a lot of these, like, just domains and puzzles, like, I don't know. I just wasn't really vibing with them all that much. I definitely needed help on a lot of them, which I don't think is really good. I don't think it was, maybe I was just actually too stupid for this patch, but I just wasn't really vibing with all that much. And, you know, it's definitely going underneath the first Golden Apple, which I think just as like a pattern in general, I think a lot of people could agree with. You know, first GAA is better than the second one in some regards, but I can understand if you have some biases to like Fischl or Xinyan and Mona in the 2.8 version of Golden Apple, but personally I just wasn't that much of a fan of it, and I really only remember the fact that I was just waiting for Yoimiya's rerun in the second phase so I could get her and quickly move on to preparing for a lot of the new Dendro characters that were getting added over here in 3.0. Oh my gosh, the first 0.0 patch that I was able to experience, and we're coming up on my second one very soon with Fontaine, but 3.0, oh my gosh. 3.0 was, yet again, another super special moment for me because it was the first 0.0 patch that I was able to experience. The addition of a full new region for Genshin, and a ton of new puzzle mechanics, a ton of new exploration areas, a ton of new gadgets, mobs, enemies, everything. Oh, it was gonna be so good, and being able to like go through the Archon Quest blind like so many other people, this was fantastic. I loved it. Except my big thing that I think is gonna be a gripe for a lot of new players coming after 3.0, unfortunately, is the Aranara quest. Now, I don't think I need to tell everybody that the Aranara quest is probably factually, maybe it's just me, but likely objectively just long and tedious. I understand it has a lot of huge lore implications, especially when, you know, trying to talk about and connect back to Ruka Devada as the previous Dendro Archon and what the role of the Aranara are. And I understand the special motif of, you know, the forest always remembers, but I was dialogue skipping through the whole thing of the Aranara quest, and it still took me 10 plus hours of playing for a full weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, to finish it, and I didn't finish it until Sunday night. And I don't know, like that's just enough to knock it down like a full letter tier for me, because otherwise, 3.0 just being absolutely massive was so good. It was just that Aranara quest. Ugh. And I want to love it more, and because I love Rana, I love the fact that she got a vision, and I love the Aranara in concept, but the quest itself was just so long. And I know it's not really a complaint to say that, like, you know, why was it not voiced, right? Because especially for something of that length, they definitely could not have had the resources or time to record for such a long quest like that. But I do remember a lot of the beginning, and I do remember a lot of the end, and it was something pretty special. I haven't gone down into the place where the Mirana avatar is to pay my respects to Arama since I finished the quest, but I do know that he's down there, so I do remember a lot about the quest itself. But we have sort of the intermediary of the Archon Quest between the start of it and the climactic end of it, which is 3.1. Now, 3.1's whole thing was obviously the addition of the desert. A lot of us have been waiting for the desert at this point. We heard about it as the Mare Javari back in Mondstadt, I think in Venti's quest, or maybe it was just another sort of side quest over there in Mondstadt, but we knew that the desert was going to be coming, and the fact that it wasn't in 3.0 just had us all waiting for 3.1. And holy moly, the place is scary when you go back and think about, like, what it added. The whole idea of King Destret and the fact that he did have some pretty intense technology back then is very cool. I like the fact that they kind of have sort of an ancient desert civilization is actually miles ahead in terms of technology of the real world. Candace also saw her first debut in this patch as well, and I still really want to build her, but the fact that I just got another Hydro support in Kokomi, she's unfortunately going to be put on the back burner as well. I will say a lot of the desert enemies that they added in this patch were very interesting, in all honesty. Like, a lot of them having their elemental gimmicks was pretty refreshing, because not only are you, like, trying to sort of combat their elemental infusions by, like, using the opposite or whatever reacts with them, but in some cases you also kind of want to use the same element. I may be thinking of the beasts, you know, the bigger guys. Maybe those were added next patch, but that's what's in my head right now. And you know, I would say that, honestly, you know, this patch was probably a solid, like, just high B. I I don't know if I would necessarily move it up to A, and maybe I'll have to rebalance this out a little bit. But I think having 3, 2 on the bottom, and then, you know, only one discrepancy between A and B, things are looking good so far. We are going to go a little bit top-heavy, though, because 3.3, the end of the Sumeru Archon Quest. I'm sorry, not 3.3, this is 3.2. With the ending of the Archon Quest, and finally what I had been waiting for so long, the release of our baby Nahida, the Dendro Archon. Dude, I could not have been more happier to get a character, like just pure and utter bliss. I loved Nahida. She was so adorable, and she is such a fantastic Dendro unit as well. And if Hoyoverse continues on the trend with making the Archons of an element pretty much the best overall like support type of character for that element, I think I'm definitely going to be enjoying Focalor when it comes to her later, in 4.2 or 3, whichever comes first. I would imagine, now that I'm thinking back, with Nahida being in 0.2, and I think A was in 0.1, maybe 0.2, but with them being in the relatively close early patches of these update cycles, I think we can definitely say that Focalor probably will be coming soon. But just that alone honestly makes me love this patch a ton. And yeah, that's not even like the end of it, because the ending of the Archon Quest itself was such a huge deal. I mean, the fact that we were able to see not only Scaramouche in his Godbot, something that he has been talking about for the entirety of the Archon Quest, I think, and outside of Act 2, where we were doing the Samsara, but seeing Dottore and Skada and Ruka Devada, oh my gosh, dude, like this ending, dude, I need to tell you all right here, right now, the end of the Sumeru Archon Quest for me literally left me speechless, crying, and pretty much for all intents and purposes so emotionally dead. I was broken after the ending of that patch. I don't know if I would put it above 2.7, but these two are damn close to each other. I loved 3.2. It was something so special. It was something so cool. I loved it so much. But then we got the following patch with Scaramouche rebranding to the Wanderer. Now, I do understand, well, no, I don't understand what they really did with Skada in terms of like resetting his sort of position in the world and everyone's knowledge of him. It seems like kind of just a strange way to kind of, I guess, redeem him as a character. But regardless of what he did or what he's gone through, both in terms of reset or not, you know, I still don't really think he's all that likable of a character. But that's just me, obviously. This is the main Wanderer patch and everything. And I would say that the main patch event, which was the Chinju Forest sort of horror event sort of spectacle thing that was going on with Ito and the gang and everybody there, you know, it was a really nice one, honestly. I still remember the yokai girl and how she was one of the well, I don't remember exactly what she was, honestly, but I'll have to go back sometime because I don't remember specifics. But, you know, for what the Archon Quest itself didn't really do for me, a lot of the events and supplementary stuff past that kind of did bring it back up. And I would say probably, you know, I likely did enjoy it a little bit more than something like maybe Windbloom in theory and like 2.1. But, you know, maybe not as much as some of these others. I think there is like a hard gap in between things like, you know, well, now that I'm looking at it here, maybe I'll move 3.0 up over these two. Yeah, that feels a little bit better for me. Maybe we'll move that down. But yeah, I think I can go ahead and leave it there. That's cool, right? And now we have the big one. The big one where, in all honesty, this was kind of like the start of me wanting to upload videos again pretty consistently in some regard, because 3.4 was the patch where I decided to put together a short little video about Hu Tao and my journey to Day 1 Triple Crown her. The patch itself being the third Lantern Rite for the game, this was honestly probably my favorite one, in all honesty. Like, the Hu Tao table thing at the end, being able to see Shenhe and Baizhu and Yao Yao's edition and all of this good stuff. Again, just another feels good moment. Oh man, I love Lantern Rite. I think it's one of my favorite seasonal patches for this game. It really is just something super special that you can always look forward to whenever, you're going through the main Archon Quest of a region, but then there's a quick break with Lantern Rite, and then we start getting into like a lot of just the more kind of goofy stuff later following that. Yelan got her first rerun, Hu Tao's whole rerun as well, the addition of Yao Yao, as I mentioned before. This patch, I think, it's definitely one of my favorites. I really enjoyed it. And I still haven't, really fully leveled up Yao Yao, at least in terms of talents. I really want to because she is something special, but there's just so many characters I want to focus on because this game and these characters, I love them so much. 3.4, I think, really was sort of I would say it goes up here like in my top 3. And maybe I'll end up moving Unreconciled Stars down and then bringing this down so we can even things out just a little bit, because I am anticipating one of these to go in A tier as well, just to kind of heavily balance things out. But that leads us on to the newest Windbloom, which, I'm gonna be honest, the Windbloom event itself I wasn't too hyped about. I mean, it was cool to see Kale back in Mondstadt again for the first time in terms of the in-game stuff of what we've seen, but I feel like they just missed out heavily on the fact that we ourselves did not get to be there for Kale for her first return to Mondstadt, because that was initially my biggest hype for the fact that we were going to be getting Windbloom again. And the fact that they just kind of like dropped the fact that she's been going to Mondstadt on her own, for the past couple years. Yeah, it's like, hasn't she been hasn't she been affected by Elazar this whole time? Struggling to move and things like that. How is she traveling to Mondstadt on her own? I feel like they probably could have just made it a little bit more special in terms of Kale, returning to Mondstadt and getting to see Amber again for the first time. That in and of itself was a big letdown for me, unfortunately. What was not a big letdown, though, was the Kari Bear quest. One of the biggest lore drops I think the game has ever given us to get closer to what exactly happened in Conria 500 years ago after the Cataclysm, and not only getting more clues about it, but getting to see some of the things that affected the people there firsthand. Clothar Albric, Kari Bear himself, this was marketed as a Dane's quest, but, in all honesty, Dane's Leave was not there at all, really. The quest itself was one of the biggest things that I think we were all looking forward to. But I think for even most of us, we were likely looking a lot more forward to the fact that Dia herself was finally becoming playable. Now, we did not know how bad she was going to be beforehand, but I remember seeing this early, not early, but the first reveal of her in the special program, and just seeing her burst of her wailing on people and likely dealing so much damage. I know that, that pretty much wasn't true, but, that's what we were thinking. She was going to be one of the most hyped characters added to the game, and that's why it hurt a lot of us when she just wasn't really all that good. And in order to make her good, you just needed to have a hell of a lot of investment in her, in constellations, in her weapon, maybe R5ing her weapon. I'm not sure if people were crazy enough to do that. Maybe they were, but oh man, I think Windbloom had some good, but it also had a lot of bad. And unfortunately, Dia's caught right in the middle, just because she was such a hype character, but she ended up being very underwhelming. And I think just for that, I'm gonna likely put her at the bottom of A, just in front of the first Lantern Rite in Year 1. Was it better than the first Windbloom, though? I wasn't there for the first Windbloom, so I'm going to just put it in front for now, because I obviously played this one first, but that's where I'm going to leave it there for now. And I'd say we're pretty evenly balanced so far, and, maybe I can get a decent balance here with these last two. Starting off with 3.6. This is 3.6, right? Now, 3.6 itself, I don't think really added too much in terms of like actual content, but a lot of the stuff related to the story and Conria was huge. It was massive because this was the last big desert region to get added, and with the Pari and the Amrita pool and Rukkhadevata's power and everything in between the last Hydro Archon, Rukkhadevata, and things like that, like, dude, starting to get a lot of the Fontaine little bits of lore here, and not only getting to see the front gate of Conria. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, and don't even get me started on the fact that we were able to see, you know, quote unquote, see a Pep, the Dendro Dragon, because every region has a dragon. We have Dvalin, we have Ajdaha. The Orobashi in Inazuma was killed, but a Pep dragon is absolutely massive, and while we didn't fight a Pep directly, we did fight like the Warden of her memories or something. I don't know. I probably missed that part of the lore, but it's a really interesting boss, and I think it's one of the cooler bosses in the game so far. I think this was also the patch that we got Baiju added to the game, because I don't see him. I don't think he was in the last patch with Charlotte and everything, but with Baiju's addition, a long-awaited character, I wasn't too hyped for him, and to my knowledge, a lot of people are a little bit bummed about him, also underwhelmed, similar to Dia. But I'm not too butthurt about it because I was never really looking forward to him in the first place. But that's not knocking all of you guys that like were excited for him. But I think I can just go ahead and snag this into the top of B because, well, no, I'll snag it here and bring this Windbloom down because a lot of the stuff in regards to Fontaine and Conria and literally seeing the Conria doors underneath the desert here, that's massive. That's huge. In fact, I'm going to put it up here. In fact, I think I'm going to put it up here. I don't know. A lot of this stuff here just in the top of A is so jumbled. Like, you could, like, above Reconciled Stars 1.1, you could pretty much, like, mix and match any one of these 5, I think. But now we're coming down to the last one that at least is mentioned on here. I'll talk about 3.8 a little bit in a moment. But 3.7, our first look at Charlotte, and really a TCG-centered event, which I think honestly is just gonna end up putting it like right here for me automatically. So I'll move this Windbloom up. But I'm not one that's really like super into Genius Invocation in Genshin anymore. I had my fill with it when it was first released and for, like the first couple patches afterward where more cards were being added and everything. But unfortunately, it was literally right here at 3.7 where I just kind of lost all of my interest in the game mode, unfortunately. I do know that a lot of people needed a patch like this to like revolutionize the game and add a lot more things to further flesh it out and some of the strategy involved. But I think for me that ended up making it a lot more complicated and a lot less worth it to go for a lot of the rewards that are associated with it. And for now I'm content with the cards that I do have and the ones that I can fight with. I don't think I've actually fought in any of like the weekly duels in the past couple weeks, which is unfortunate. But I do remember seeing Charlotte for the first time, and she instantly stole my heart. I love the way that she looked. I love the way that she spoke. I loved her attitude. She just gave me so many good vibes, and that was like just an instant thing for me. Similar to Yelan, where it was just like, you know, I'm going to save for her, I'm going to be ready for her, and I'm going to get Charlotte day one whenever she drops in the game. And I was expecting 4.0, but you know, we're here, and she's not coming in 4.0. Another character that was added that I'm actually like really happy that I got, even though I haven't used her in a long time, was Kirara. Kirara was, oh my, she was just so freaking adorable. Like I don't think I can explain to you guys like how much my heart was melting seeing her stuff in the trailer for the first time. It was just so freaking cute, and I was so happy that I got her, I think in my first 10 pull on the 3.7 banner. With the showcasing of Charlotte and with Kirara being added, and I do admit that the 3.7 stuff for TCG was a huge deal. You know what? Actually kind of thinking about it more, I think I'll go ahead and move it up past Reconciled Stars, and we'll move the Windbloom back down just to even things all out. Yeah, this looks right to me. I think so. But we're not done, obviously, because, you know, 3.8 is getting ready to come to a close, and I do need to talk about it a little bit. It's not here in the tier list, but I will tell you where I'm going to put it. You know, with 3.8, it honestly felt like another like kind of underwhelming patch to me anyway. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just because I didn't like play through the Millennium Mirage like as quickly as I kind of should have. But I don't know. Like I feel because this is like kind of what happened to me last year with 2.8 right before Sumeru came out, where I just wasn't really all there. I wasn't thinking about it too much, and maybe it's just sort of a subconscious thing that I'm thinking about. Like I don't want to like waste my energy too much before a new region comes out. But I don't doubt that the entirety of this patch had so much personality and just stupid fun to go along with. It looked so cute. It looked so pretty, and the addition of Klee and Kaya's costumes as well were extremely welcome. I'm not a huge fan of Kaya's like all that much. Like I'm not like, you know, gushing over the fact that like I need it, I want it, right? But it definitely is a nice change of pace in terms of outfit, and Klee's is so precious. I love it. Klee's is actual perfection. I imagine that Klee, I imagine that Alice is pretty much gonna look like an adult version of that Klee costume, at least in most regards, possibly, because at this point we still haven't seen her, and I was seriously expecting to see her like maybe teased somewhere in the event story, because during the special program they had her present, but they just didn't have a chibi for her. I was seriously thinking, like, are they gonna like, you know, tease us with Alice's like model? Like, what is she gonna look like? I was so ready for that, but it never happened. As kind of dead as I think the patch was, at least in terms for me, I do recognize that the patch was probably a lot of fun for a lot of people, and it definitely gave me my opportunity to get Coco right before Fontaine comes out. And I think I probably would put it, you know, right alongside here in the lower A, around like Reconciled Stars, 3.3, and Windbloom. I have tried to order this tier list pretty close to how I think I enjoy a patch overall compared to the others. Like they're ordered is what I'm trying to say. I think this is like as accurate as I can get it. The only things that I would say that like the patches that I genuinely did not really like, obviously the ones that I have played, really were just 2.8, and unfortunately just for the fact that I cannot remember these two like at all. I don't remember what happened in these at all. I literally don't. I don't know what happened here. It's just such a weird thing to like kind of think about, but this, you know, this is pretty much my Genshin like patches tier list, I guess. Looking back on a lot of the things that the game has updated and changed, and what all of them have done really for me. It definitely is unfair because a lot of like the year 1 patches are like lower in the tier list, and that's mainly just for the fact that I haven't played them. But you know, overall, I still really love this game. It is one of my favorites of all time, and I absolutely love this game to death. It is so special. I love it. But yeah, I would say that right there is going to be my sort of final tier list for all of the Genshin patches up until 4.0. We have 4.0 coming up in just under a week. I'm excited to see what's going on over there. You know, and here is to another year of just banger content. I'm really hoping that we have another good year ahead of us, and with a lot of the underwater exploration going on in Fontaine, I'm hoping that we have some good stuff coming to us in the future. I'm very excited. But yeah, please keep in mind, guys, that obviously this tier list is purely just opinionated for me. It does not necessarily align with you, and I'm not saying that you're wrong if your tastes are different from mine. So I ask that you respect my opinions on which patches I thought were good or not. Especially give me a little bit of leniency on the patches that I literally was not here for or can't remember. Because obviously I wasn't paying full attention to them until about 2.4-ish. So that's where we're sitting, and you know, despite some of these being in the lower tiers, I do have something positive to say about all of them. They're all good in their own regards, they all did something great for the game, and again, I'm just very happy for what's going to be going on in the future. But with that being said, I think we can go ahead and leave things here for today. As we kind of get propped up for Fontaine here, I just want to thank you guys so very much for watching this bit of a longer video. I think it is going to be a bit of a longer one. If you guys did enjoy the tier list and maybe want to see me do a little bit more of things like these in the future, I won't do them too often, but be sure to let me know by leaving a like and a comment as well down below, like actually just telling me that. And if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe because we are going to be jumping into Genshin 4.0 very soon. I'm very excited for a lot of the stuff that's coming up in Fontaine within the next week. And I love this game. It is something so special, and I'm so excited to see what is getting added. But yeah, we'll go ahead and leave this there for today. Once again, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for sticking around, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everybody.